Good day. This is Russell J. Hawley coming to you from the Tate Geological Museum in Wyoming. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Reverend Edward Hitchcock and how he got a lot of answers about dinosaurs from studying footprints. Back in the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century, dinosaurs were characterized as nothing more than overgrown lizards. The first sculpture of a dinosaur that was ever made looks like an iguana blown up to the size of a bus. It's in Hyde Park in London, worth checking out if you ever get there. But meanwhile, over in America, a Congregationalist minister by the name of the Reverend Edward Hitchcock was getting a lot of correct ideas about dinosaurs by studying footprints. He never found a single dinosaur bone during the entire course of his career. And yet, by carefully studying the footprints and using his brain, he was able to work out what these things were like in quite a bit of detail. So first of all, the footprints themselves. Most of the footprints that he was finding belonged to bipeds. They were walking on 2 feet, one almost directly in front of the other. And this told him a couple of things. First of all, that the arms were probably fairly short. And second of all, that they would have held the legs straight down underneath the body. And that's why the trackway was narrow gauge. If they'd been sprawling like lizards, then those footprints would be far apart, way off to the sides. Also, because the distance between the footprints, right footprint, left footprint, right footprint, left footprint, was fairly long, he reasoned that these animals had fairly long legs as well. And he was able to actually tell quite a bit about the animal's feet from studying those prints. When you got a footprint, you've got the toes coming off here, but in dinosaurs and in birds, there are pads underneath those toes. One pad underneath each joint between each set of phalanges. So you've got a couple of pads here, and then a claw mark, and a couple of pads, 3 of them here, and a claw mark. And by looking at the number of the pads, he was able to work out the number of bones in the animal's feet. Now, this is a footprint from Wyoming, found about 100 years after Hitchcock was studying his Connecticut fossil footprints. But you can see the same principle at work here. This is the footprint of an Allosaurus. And there is one of the pads, and then there's another, and there's another, and then there's that claw mark right there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pads and a claw right there. In the middle toe, we've got a big pad right here, pad and claw. And then on the inner toe, we've got only 2 pads, one here, and then the claw at the tip right there. So if each pad then corresponds to a pair of toe bones, then when we look at the Allosaurus's foot over here, we get no big surprises. Our 2 pads here on that inner toe go here, and then there's the claw. And then we've got 1, 2, 3 pads and the claw here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 pads and the claw mark here on the inner toe. Now, we've got the foot of Allosaurus. In Wyoming, many Allosaurus bones have been dug up, but over in Connecticut, Hitchcock did not find any bones, and yet he drew a picture of the animal's foot skeleton. This is a left footprint, and then this is a drawing of the right foot as the bones would have appeared, and Hitchcock restored it with these 3 toes, each with the right number of phalanges, and then sometimes these prints would show a very short inner toe with 1 pad and a claw mark, and so he gave it a little toe in there with only 1 phalanx and the claw right there. This drawing of a dinosaur's foot made without any bones turned out to be perfectly accurate when later on the identity of the Connecticut Valley track makers was revealed. And indeed, Allosaurus has that same little claw right there on the inside of his foot. So what about the rest of the animal? Well, you might wonder why he didn't just assume that these were birds, because this phalangeal formula that we see in these feet is very bird-like, and indeed the short first toe is a bird-like feature as well, although in modern birds it's been re-elongated and turned around back to help it grasp branches. So why didn't he just call them birds? Well, every now and again, there was a spot where the animal had crouched down and placed its hands on the ground and made handprints. And these showed not feathered wings, as you would see on a bird, but rather little five-fingered handprints, almost exactly like the paw print of a little tiny crocodile. So they had bird-like feet, but they had reptilian hands. And when Hitchcock described these in his pictures, he called them ornithoid saurians, which basically translates as bird-like reptiles. And this is a very good description of a dinosaur. So to sum up, this is what Hitchcock concluded that his track maker would have looked like. You see the legs straight down underneath the body, that narrow gauge trackway, the forearms, that little reptilian hand, and the very long stride between the legs as well. So the moral of this story, I suppose, is that footprints can provide you with a lot of information about ancient creatures, even if you don't find any bones.